Peter, you had some spicy takes in your column this week as well. So I want to wrap this up with your bold predictions, so I looked at it ahead of time, and you started this thing off. You said, I like the Steelers over San Francisco, Bosa or not. And I'm curious, now Bosa's there. Does it change your thinking at all?
I think Bosa's going to play. I still have like the Steelers. I feel like the Steelers have a home field advantage that is very real. I feel like they all played in the preseason, so they are already in a rhythm. And this feels like one of those deals where there's so much Steelers buzz right now that they're going to come out and these young stars are going to put on a show. And San Francisco, that's a long trip. I know that Kyle Shanahan's been in the lab, and I know that you might think, okay, well, that defense can handle Kenny Pickett. I like an upset, and I know this is the Joe Davis game, which is in Moose, and those are our guys, and we're going to all be watching at 1:00 Eastern on Fox, and I think we're all going to be coming out of that thing saying, did Mike Tomlin just find himself another franchise quarterback after 20 years of Ben Roethlisberger, and did the league really let that happen? I feel like Pickett's going to have a day.
It feels so good to be like really excited about the Steelers again. Like they haven't been bad, obviously. Mike Tomlin's never had a losing record, but I'm jacked about the Steelers for the first time in what feels like at least 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I put them in the playoffs this year, and this year's AFC is so loaded that if you take one team in the playoffs, it sounds like it's some revelation, but if you're taking one team in the playoffs in a wild card spot, you're not taking another, and it's so loaded. That means that, well, then Baltimore might not be able to go, or the Chargers, or the Jets, or the Bills, or the Patriots, or the Dolphins. So I've got them as one of my 7 in the AFC, and I don't think many people do, but I think the Steelers are ready this year.
The AFC absolutely stresses me out in terms of prognosticating.
So loaded.
All right, but to stick with this Niners-Steelers matchup for 1 second longer, though, I mean, it sounds like you've got some big expectations of this 49ers team, and particularly their running back.
Yeah, I got McCaffrey as my MVP. I don't think this is going to be an ordinary season from this guy. I think he's going to have to be Superman for this team to do what I think they can do, and that's go to the Super Bowl and be the 1 seed in the NFC. I think he's done 1,000 on a worse Carolina team. He's got a full offseason with this San Francisco offense, and Kyle Shanahan knows what they gave up and what they're paying him. I feel like he's going to have no problem featuring him in a lot of different ways. The beauty of their offense, as you know, it's positionless. So Debo can do this, and Juszczyk can do that, and Kittle can do this, and I think McCaffrey's the engine that goes, and Purdy's like a robot, man. It's like, do this, do that. Like, he's not trying to improvise and put you on skates. So I think the offense is being drawn up for Christian McCaffrey, and we haven't had a running back win the MVP since, I believe, Adrian Peterson in the mid-2000s. I think this is the year. I think a lot of those quarterbacks are going to cancel themselves out, and I'm going with a big swing. I think he's plus 8,000 if you're looking at the sites, and I think he's 25 on the list if you're going down all the players as far as favorites go. But that's where I live, my friend.
It's like we were talking about earlier. Like, of course, a quarterback will probably win, but what fun is that? We're trying to have fun.
Go say Josh Allen. Great. Let's have fun. It's Christian McCaffrey.
Okay, so from one of the most fun offenses in the league to not. You have some big expectations for the Denver Broncos to rebound from what we saw last year.
Completely biased. All right. I would say I'm unbiased and objective. I'm an insider. If Sean Payton told me he was coaching the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and they were in the NFL this year, I would take them to go to the playoffs. Like, that's how much faith I have in Sean Payton in getting his team right. And remember, Parcells used to join new teams and right away there would be success. Like, some of these guys, it's just the culture and the getting things in order. And I think Russell's going to be much better than he was last year. And again, this is procrastination. Like, they can go 5-12, and I'll look at you and be like, I took a swing and I missed. I just know Peyton really well. He worked with us at Fox last year. He's a relentless, competitive.
Yes, he is.
Genius, and he's an SOB in a lot of different ways to a lot of different people. Like, he does not give a what. And I think his sole mission right now is to bring respectability back to the Broncos. I don't know if there's a single coach who is more desperate for his fan base and for his team right now than Sean Payton. So I went with Payton as a wild card. I can't tell you how, and I can't tell you who's going to make that happen. I would trust him anywhere.
I don't know how it happens either, but as somebody from New Orleans, I'm not betting against him. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Let's stick in the AFC West, because I think this is the spiciest take of all. And that's your Maxx Crosby prediction. Just because, and I'm sorry to Raider Nation, I don't foresee a great season for you. So if Maxx Crosby is capable of winning Defensive Player of the Year, as you allege, that would be, I mean, That would be incredible.
Yeah, I think this is the one award where like team like outcomes hasn't historically been such a big deal. And so that's why I don't have the Raiders going deep or anything. I don't have them making the playoffs. I have Maxx Crosby winning Defensive Player of the Year. I think he leads the league in sacks, and I think he takes that leap. I know that at the joint practice with the Rams, Maxx Crosby was unblockable. And I guess you could say, well, the Rams offensive line, people who from both sides are like, Crosby looks incredible. And that's not enough for me to say Defensive Player of the Year. But again, same vein as McCaffrey for MVP. Let's take a swing. Crosby has been an emerging superstar in this league for years, and I believe he can get 20 sacks. And I think that this might be the season. Defensive player there. I looked into it. Cortez Kennedy, the late great Cortez Kennedy, who you're a New Orleans guy. He's a former New Orleans Saint, of course, as well as a Seahawk. When he's with the Seahawks, I think in '92, they went 2-14. And he won Defensive Player of the Year because he had the best year as a defensive player. I think it's an individual award, not a team award. And I think Crosby's going to be the best individual defensive player this year.
I love it. Like, I mean, hey, nobody's going to remember who all picked Micah Parsons anyway. So let's have some fun. All right.
Bosa, great.
Exactly. Two of the hardest to predict divisions in the NFL, the AFC East and the NFC North. Who you got?
Took the Jets and the Lions. And that's not me doing shock value. I think both these teams are greatly improved. And as we're recording this, the Lions-Chiefs kick off. And I'll tell you before the game, and I might look stupid when this thing posts or when you guys are listening to this on your podcast, but I've got the Lions beating the Chiefs in week 1. I feel like they are legit. And then I think the Jets are going to beat the Bills in week 1. I think they are legit. And I think they keep that going the rest of the season. Two fan bases that have been just completely cursed, terrible last 20 years for both teams. The history is there, but I don't think these two teams representative of those past histories. So I'm going to go Jets, AFC East, Lions, NFC North, and deal with all the shrapnel if it goes awry.
Which leads to the flip side of that. And we touched on this a little bit earlier, but if teams get in, somebody's got to get left behind. And it sounds like you've got both of my Super Bowl teams not making the playoffs.
I mean, I didn't even know those were your Super Bowl teams before we got on this, but that's in a bullet point on my cheat sheet. I think the Cowboys and Dolphins, who last year both had amazing seasons. Cowboys 12 wins, Dolphins, if Tua doesn't get hurt, who knows? I've got them both missing the playoffs, and I want to talk Cowboys real quick with you because no one's more plugged in with them than you, or at least
let's do it.
You've got a feel for it. Like, Am I being too short-sighted and just saying, like, I don't know if the Mike McCarthy, Dak Prescott offense is going to be as good as Kellen Moore and Dak Prescott. I've become very friendly with Kellen, and everyone's like, oh, you're just a Kellen Moore guy. I'm like, we're not going to dinner or anything. It's not like that. I just really respect what he did with the Cowboys and with Dak, and was always in Dak's ear since he was a player. They let Kellen leave, and I feel like Jerry thinks that they were never going to get to the top with Kellen, and I think McCarthy kind of said, I got it, brings in Shoddy, whatever it is. I want to wait and see on that. I don't think Mike McCarthy is the head coach for no reason. I think this guy won 12 games in a row and is fantastic in a lot of ways. But we're talking a very important piece of what their success has been on offense has been that Kellen Moore. And I guess on that alone, I was like, I'm not so sold on the Cowboys offense. Defense can be great. In the NFL, you need to score points.
I don't disagree with you. I think it's weird how many Cowboy fans and people almost like celebrated Kellen Moore leaving.
Yeah.
I'm like, top 5 in offense for 4 straight years, guys. Like, be careful what you wish for. Having said that, I trust the personnel. And I trust that Mike McCarthy is smart enough not to rewrite the playbook. Like, I think this is still going to be stuff that Dak Prescott's comfortable with, stuff that he knows how to do. And it's an offense with
great offensive line. Do you feel like, and I know, again, Cowboys fans and NFL fans were like, his best days behind him, letting Zeke walk, and obviously the salary didn't make sense, but not trying to bring Zeke back. Like, do you feel like you miss Zeke at all in this offense? I do. I think Pollard's great. Can we see Pollard for 17 games as the number 1 guy? I don't know. I
was worried before training camp, and I thought about bringing this up during your 5-day 3 guys, but man, I'm juiced for Deuce. Really? I am juiced for Deuce, man. Like, look, he's not going to carry the ball 20 times a game. He's going to be a role player, but he's got juice. He's got elusiveness. He can play a role as a receiver. I think a lot of NFL fans, like, he's a cool story because he's my size and he made the NFL. I mean, this dude he's right up there with Darren Sproles as one of the best players in Kansas State history. He's a unanimous All-American. between him and Tony Pollard, I feel good about the Cowboys running back prospects.
All right. And I'm not like so convicted on this. Look, if the Cowboys go 13-4, I'll be like, yeah, that made sense. I made the wrong pick. It's just, there's only so many playoff spots, and I didn't have the Dolphins or the Cowboys.
I get it. One team that we agree on, I think one team that really everybody agrees on, that's the Cincinnati Bengals, but you are very high on the Cincinnati Bengals this year.
Yeah, I think they're going to be great. And I've got the Chiefs beating them in the playoffs in their building, and like one of these heartbreaking losses for Cincinnati fans. And I'm sorry in advance, but I think the Bengals are the 1 seed. I think they have a tremendous season, like a 13-4, 14-3 type year. What about you?
I mean, I think the Bengals win their division. So my hot take, actually, Peter King stole my hot take right out from under me. I've got Jacksonville as the 1 seed. Yeah. I feel really good about that for a lot of reasons, but I see the Bengals as a 12+ win team, and I absolutely think they're going to be one of the, if not one of the last 4. I mean, divisional round at the bare minimum, maybe AFC Championship game for sure.
Yeah, and that's my next point on this article. I go to 10 points as number 8. Mahomes is just going to gut them, just like Burrow did to them 2 years ago. I was in that building. One of the coolest games I've been to live. The outcome wasn't great for the home team, but that Chiefs Bengals AFC Championship game 2 years ago in Arrowhead, when they were down 21-3, and Burrow just was like, "I'm going to anoint myself. Like, we're going to do this. We're going to get this thing done." I think Mahomes got the best of him in the AFC Championship game, but there were some questionable plays there, and it was in Arrowhead. It's not a slam dunk that like either quarterback has the other one's number, because they've gone and won big games and the other teams build it, or, Mahomes hasn't won in Cincinnati yet. I feel like this is a big one. And I feel like Cincinnati is going to have the 1 seed. They're going to be booking their tickets to Vegas. And then Mahomes is like, not so fast. He beats them.
I think, we were talking at the top of this, like maybe you get a little bit fatigued about talking about the same teams, but like if you love football, are you really going to be mad that you get to see Mahomes Burrow again? Like I'll watch that every January for the next decade.
It's the stories, right? And now we've got this budding thing, and it's like for years it was like Manning and Brady, and then after that, we've been kind of grasping. We're like, yeah, well, there's also Rodgers versus the Dak and the Cowboys Packers. Like it was Manning versus Brady, and we've been waiting. And I think where we might be on the precipice of putting this Burrow Mahomes thing into that conversation. And that's a shame, because Josh Allen's great and he's in Buffalo, but he hasn't had that big win like those guys have over the other two.
All right. So we're talking Chiefs Bengals. We know how you feel about the 49ers. We talked about your Super Bowl prediction for Las Vegas. What do you got? We get to February. It feels like an eternity from now. What are we going to see?
Do you, as someone who does this on a daily basis like myself, do you dread the start of the season? Do you look forward to the start of the season? Or like when you hear February, does your heart like sink? Or are you like, hell yeah, this is awesome? Part of me is like, I have such anxiety that like, oh my God, there's going to be so many stories and there's so many things to do. Like, how's it all going to, but it always ties up in a bow at the end, And like, I as we're sitting here now, as the season started to kick off, I'm like, it's so overwhelming. And yet I think at the end of the day, it's going to be, 2 of the best teams in football, 2 teams that went to their conference championship games or won a Super Bowl last year. I think Kansas City wins 34-28. And all the anxiety and nerves I have right now, like, it doesn't matter. None of what we say matters as far as predictions go, because in Las Vegas, when it's 6:00 Eastern, we're all going to be either at the game or we're going to be watching the game, and we're all going to be like, yeah, this makes sense. This is how it should be.
I think there's definitely anxiety that comes with the start of a season, especially if your job is to know all of this stuff. But at this point, with kickoff finally so close,
just go.
It just the hard work is done, and now we actually get to watch the games. Like I'm on cloud 9.
You get it. Like, we do the morning show on NFL Network, and it's every day, but it's also in May and June and July. And I always laugh. I'm like, if Calais Campbell does a funny Instagram post, we're doing 5 minutes on it, like, because we're just looking for content. Once the season starts, like, you don't have to do anything too creative or creative. Like, the stories write themselves. Like, football's here, and we're kicking off this weekend. And I always say my favorite time of the NFL season is that first kickoff in the Sunday 1:00 games or 10 a.m. games in the West Coast. And it's like all those kicks are going off at once, and you're like, all right, the plane is up in the air, and let's just go for the ride. I'm there with you, my friend. You're on the East Coast. I'm out here on the West. But regardless, I think it's going to be the same incredibly fun ride for both of us. You heard it here first. Peter Schrager says it. It's going to happen based on recent history. The Kansas City Chiefs beating the San Francisco 49ers in Super Bowl 58.
the fun thing is, even if you're 100% right, the ride to get there is going to be a blast.
Yeah, and there's going to be some hiccups and bumps and bruises along the way. And if Pop Douglas goes for 200 catches and 1,600 yards, then you better believe I'm going to be on this podcast every week, keeping track.
I mean, I'm looking forward to having you on this podcast as often as possible. So whatever grudges, whatever bragging you want to do, you got it, man. You got the platform whenever you want it. Thank you so much, Peter. We'll talk to you soon.